confidence and personal growth. To speak, you can unmute yourself. When you're done speaking, kindly mute yourself. If the speaker is not fully visible on the frame, you can click on the three dots on the speaker's frame and then click on Fit to Frame. Now, with a huge round of applause, I would like to welcome the presiding officer of the night, Toastmaster Raj.
Thank you so much, Shreya, for warm starting of our special event. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. And I welcome to Kory, the special person who are with us today. I will not take any of your special and important time, and we will hand over to our special guest, distinguished Toastmaster Kory, to take the session ahead. Kory, over to you.
So I'm unmuted. First, thank you to Tuba and Raj. I appreciate this opportunity. But let's get right down to it. The reason why you're here is to create a winning Toastmasters International competition speech. And I'm here to help you do that. Over the course of our few minutes together, we're going to uncover 10 improvement processes, and I will give you one improvement mindset, and that's going to be at the very end. I will take questions at the end and reiterate my points, but before we get there, I want to tell you that each of you is made up of the same material that stars are. If we look at the elements that make up our body, we have the same elements in us as stars. Now, we can't hold a star, but we can hold something kind of close to that. And that leads us to the beginning of the diamond hour. I see the diamond in each of you, and that's my teaser. The best part about what we're going to do here is that they fall under three categories, the three broad categories. We will mine for stories, we will define stories, and then we will refine them. Those are your three broad categories, and we will begin from there. The mining part is pretty simple. From the time you were born, you have been collecting data. Some people ask me, Kory, when do you start your speech? And I say, I started from the time I was born. Because what we could do as infants was experience and feel. And as we experience and feel, those tie us together with everyone around the world, as a matter of fact. We all know what it's like to be cold and tired and hungry. We know what it feels like to feel warm and full. We know what it's like to be touched. We know what it's like to be in pain. And those universal experiences tie us to each other. Why does that matter? Well, it matters because we are all and always mining for stories. When you couldn't make sense of the world, what did you do? Anyone, you can hop on in and chime in and help. We told stories. We told stories because we had to find a way to make the world make sense. And every culture around the world has myths and stories. Whether it's a religious sort of background or whether it's a tall tale, we were trying to find ways to make the world explained and explainable. We're all storytellers on some level. And it was Jeremy Sue in the Scientific American, September 2008, that said 65% of our day is spent telling stories. Think about that. What did you do at school? You remember that question? Your parents would always ask you, and you'd say nothing. But in reality, you went through something, and as your parents probed you with more questions, you would relate a story. Or even now, around the water cooler, you talk about what you did on the weekend, or you talk about the evaluation, or what you had for lunch. Those are stories. We tell stories as human beings. So how do you start this particular speech? Well, again, as I referred to, you started the moment that you were born because of the feelings and emotions that you encountered along your way, the experiences that you've been through. But how do you collect them? For me, it's a journal and a pen. And every time I have a thought, I write it down in my book. Now, not every thought is going to be one that manifests it out into a contest speech, but I have a starting place. Have you ever had an idea that you didn't write down, and then on television or at the store, you saw someone else had brought your idea to life? The universe talks to all of us. And again, if we're made up of the same stuff as stars, the universe is going to talk to us. We receive energy in any number of ways, whether it's light or heat. You can feel the sunlight. You can feel the ring light. You can feel heat. We receive energy in any number of ways. And when we do that, it feels natural. So when I tell you that the universe is talking to you, don't think of me as being crazy and all whacked out. No, the universe does indeed talk to us. And that creativity goes to the person who writes the thoughts down. And when we chase those ideas down, and when we execute them to fruition, the universe is pleased. All right. So I don't know about your religious feelings, but I always think that every word that comes out of my mouth has been sent to me by someplace, someone, and I'm just the guy that grabs it and works it all the way out to its end. Germans have a statement that says, "Wer schreibt, der bleibt." He who writes stays. And if you are able to write your thoughts down, you can come back and refer to them. Have you ever had a moment where you said, "Oh yeah, I'm going to remember that," and it was a really fantastic idea and you didn't write it down? And then when you tried to come back and forage for it, it wasn't there. Write your ideas down. That's the first thing that you do. Because before we get to your winning speech, we have to have material to mine. And you have to have more than enough material Very good, Nyana. You have to have more than enough material to come down with one. So every day I write. Every day I journal. Every day I write down all the ideas that I've got. And once they're down on paper, I can come back and look through them, sift through them, which is what we're doing. We're sifting through them for that little shiny object, or it might be a big object. And as we continue to mine, those things become apparent. You have to do volume writing in order to find these stories. You're going to encounter some fool's gold, some things that look really good, but they're not going to go anywhere. And sometimes it's just going to be dirt. Sometimes it's just a thought that's going to go absolutely nowhere. But you've got to go do that work, that processing, in order to make sure that to make sure that you have more than enough material to move forward. Have you ever chased butterflies when you were a child? If you have, I liken chasing butterflies to chasing stories. If you are captivated by a butterfly, and I remember I would chase butterflies all throughout my neighborhood when I was little, and I didn't care where I went. I was so interested in chasing that butterfly. And sometimes I'd catch the butterfly, and the butterfly, I'd never want to harm the butterfly, but I wanted to see the butterfly up close. And sometimes the butterfly would land on my finger and I could look at it. And there'd be other times when the butterfly would stay just out of reach and I could still look at it. When you write, sometimes you're chasing butterflies. That idea is elusive and you chase it and you chase it and you chase it and you chase it, with the only consequence being that you are trying to get close enough to see it or maybe even catch it. And if you catch it, then you look around and say, wow, I've got this idea. And then you look at the distance that you have come. That same analogy follows your creative process, and it will help you along the way. Mark down not only the butterfly that you've observed, but the distance that you've come. So now you've got your butterfly, or you've got your shiny object in the dirt. What do you write about? We're going to go back to our childhood experiences, feelings and experiences. Those things are what tie us all together. I will share a thought with you. Be on the lookout for unexpected treasure. And the unexpected treasure is what we're seeking here, right? Have you ever driven home from work a different way? And because you're not familiar with it, you have to pay more attention to it, and you're observing everything with live eyes. There's sometimes we drive home on autopilot. It's this turn and this turn. I'm going to wait 60 seconds at this light, and I'm going to turn right, and then I'm going to turn left, and I'm going to go down the hill, and then I'm going to turn left, and then I'm going to turn right. Then I'm in my garage, and hey, I'm home. And it is sometimes a surprise that we get home and we don't remember exactly how we got there. But let's say there's road construction, because a lot of times there's road construction and it gives you a detour, and you have to pay attention to where the detour is taking you. And when you go on that detour, you're paying you turn down the radio and you're focusing because you don't want to miss your stop, because you want to get home. But then all of a sudden, I didn't know I was in this neighborhood, and look at that building. I didn't see that, or that looks like an interesting restaurant, or perhaps there's there's a sunset that I had never seen before, because usually there's buildings in my path. This happens to me a lot because there's construction here in Iowa, here in the middle of the United States. And I was blessed one day with construction on my main street, on the street that takes me home. I couldn't get into my apartment the normal way. So I had to go a more circuitous route. It took me out of my way by a good 5 minutes. And then 5 minutes is important, especially to everybody, because we're all efficient creatures and we want to get home in the fastest way possible. While I was familiar with this route, I was paying more attention. And as I waited at a stoplight, I saw the most fantastic sunset. It was purple and red and yellow, and there was blue sky off on either side. But if I had gone home the way I was intending to go home, my normal route, I would have missed it entirely. And having live eyes during this experience meant that not only was it visible, but I took it in. I consumed it. I digested that. I experienced that. And luckily, I was able to relate that. Now, stories go on around us, and experiences happen all around us every minute of every day. And too often we miss those opportunities to share. So the world that we're stuck in, and it sometimes seems like we're in a little Zoom cube, there's a big world outside of our Zoom cubes. And sometimes it's within the four walls of our apartment or our home, or even in the commute. Or if we have to go back to the office, we do, and we can do that. But those are the experiences that tie us to each other. And that's the mining material again. So be on the lookout for unexpected treasure. I'll share another moment like that. I am a video game player from way back in the day. And there was a basketball game for us here in the United States called NCAA basketball. And the last game, the last iteration of its game came out in 2010. And it's held its price at about $30. And I spent $30 on it because I wanted the game, because I love basketball. And then one day I had this urge to swing by a different store. And I was looking around. And in the dollar bin was the exact same game that I had paid $30 for, but it was only for $1. Now, what do you think I did? I bought the game at $1. But if I hadn't been on the lookout for unexpected treasure, I would have missed that opportunity. Now, admittedly, I have 2 copies of the game, but that unexpected treasure was something that was meaningful to me. And we can look at that in circumstances and experiences like the sunrise. We can look at it for things such as a video game, but that unexpected treasure can also manifest itself in people. People and conversations and people who have had an impact on your life. I was flying someplace, I think it was to Vancouver, BC, and I sat next to a woman. Now I'm 6'4", and I have long legs. And the woman next to me recognized that I was in an extreme amount of pain, because long legs and airline seats don't usually match up. And I was in the middle too. And the woman looked at me, looked at my legs, looked at me again and said, "Oh, honey, you can use my leg well, because my legs are short. And she curled up in her seat. And I said, thank you. And in saying thank you, we began to converse. And I found out that she happened to be the personal chef of former California governor and US President Ronald Reagan. Politics aside, I would never have known that if we hadn't struck a conversation up. Now, the cool thing was, she looked at me and said, "Oh, I can tell, honey, you love to eat." And I do. I wasn't particularly round or anything, but she said, for somebody your size, I'm sure you like to eat a lot of food. And she pulled out her diary with recipes that she had served former California governor and US President Ronald Reagan. And she said, copy these down and see if you like them. And if you do, tell this story. So I pulled out my trusty camera and I started clicking photographs of these recipes. The best part about it was, again, she was an unexpected treasure. This is part of how you mine for stories. Be on the lookout for unexpected treasure. Now, I've never seen her again, but she made an impact on me because she cared about my personal comfort, one, and she was kind enough to engage in a conversation with an absolute stranger on a metal tube with wings, where usually we don't want to talk to people. We don't want to share any sort of contact because we're in our own isolated bubble, which is kind of like how we drive home on autopilot. Be on the lookout for unexpected treasure. Let's see now. So within that same framework, when we're talking about experiences and emotions, the more universal your experience is, the more personal it is, right? If I have something to which you can relate, you can understand my personal pain. What makes us laugh, what makes us cry, warmth, heat, cold, those sensations tie us all together. My eldest son is, well, my eldest son, he's now 26, almost 26 years old. But when we found out we were going to have a little boy, I saw the sonogram. And I recognized by the length of his bones and his high cheekbones that he was going to look just like me. Actually, he looks better than I do because of his mom. Thanks. I knew who he was going to be. And every night I would talk to him in his mom's stomach, and I would tell him, "Hello, Xavier, I'm your dad. And I can't wait to see you in 6 months, in 5 months, in 4 months, in 3 months, in 2 months, in 1 month. Hey, little guy, you're on your way here. Can't wait to see you." And I would play music and I would read him stories. When he arrived, I was in the delivery room. And I said, after he was born, I said, "Hello, Xavier, I'm here." And he turned his head and cried a little bit. And I knew my son recognized me. I cut the umbilical cord, and then he had to go do had to do all the neonatal stuff or the prenatal stuff. And I was so elated. A couple hours after that, he got a strep infection, and it was touch and go for the next 10 days. And every minute after work that I could spend at the hospital in the NICU, I sat there and I prayed for my little boy to come through. Well, you know the end of the story. He's now 26, and he's 6'6". He's taller than I am. And I am lucky to have such a wonderful boy. A young man, I should say. But there are elements in that story that many of you can relate to. The birth of a child, the elation, and then also the fear and consternation of what's happening to my little one, and the feelings of helplessness, perhaps, along the way. And if you felt those things, then guess what? We've connected. And as I tell another story, you are alongside me as well. The universal experiences that we share are based in our common experiences. Did you know that there is 0.1% difference between all of us? 99.99% of our genetic material is the same. Let me repeat that. 99.9% of our genetic material is the same, which means, again, we have so much in common. But that 0.1% gives us a wild variation in everything. Now imagine what a world we'd live in if we all embraced the 99.9%. However, a lot of times we embrace the 0.1. And that causes differences. And those differences can help us find stories, because sometimes they're things that we can laugh at, and other times they're things that cause us to feel deeply. That common tie, those common ties, are the things that will give us the bedrock to move forward. I hope this has set us up for a pretty good idea of what the mining part of our raw material is. We're very similar to each other. And again, experiences and feelings are what gives us our common ties. I can tell you this. Have you ever stepped on a Lego? If you have stepped on a Lego, you are part of, I have to think, millions of people worldwide, because we had a child that left a Lego down. The Lego was hidden. We stepped on it in the dark. We hollered, hopped on one foot, and said things we probably regret out loud. And if I can make you relate to a Lego, then I can make you relate to anything else. Okay, Legos. Anyone? Legos? Did anyone else play with these? Okay, maybe it's a Western thing. Yeah. Thank you, Jeff. Good to see you, my friend. If you've ever tasted something sour, if you've ever had cold water on a hot day, if you've ever been asked out by somebody or embarrassed by something your parent or a sibling said, you're universal in an experience. And when you share those, you are connected. Mine your experiences and feelings. That wraps up mining. We will move into refining or defining in just a moment. If I may take the personal privilege of taking a quick break, a couple-minute break for people to drink some water and do a bio break. I would like to indulge that moment.
Yes. Meanwhile, Kory will back in few minutes with his bio break. I'm sure you all must be getting deep learning from him. Tuba, what do you say?
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, the way he's saying all these similar stories, now I'm thinking that all these things have happened to me, and I have never thought of it as an ISC material or something that I can use in my speeches. We get stuck when we have to write these speeches. So we have a lot of people. If anyone wants to share something, go ahead.
Yes. Kindly unmute and share your experience so far. And meanwhile, Kory will back.
It's amazing we have a people from Indonesia, from US. It's been great meeting so many people, and of course we have from India.
We have Panos from Greece. We have from Indonesia. They are from different countries. We are from US. Hello, Panos. Good to see you. Very happy to see you here.
Hello, Raj and Duba. How are you today?
Yes, all good.
I
You all
think
can unmute yourself and
Hi.
share your experience, few words. Hello, Chetan.
Hi, Raj. Yeah, it was the way the speech was delivered. I think that makes the difference. Is you get connected so easily with what he says, and we all have such stories with us, but we never really thought of putting it across, or we really don't know how to put it across. Maybe the more effective way of saying it, and some of our life experience may just be maybe a learning for someone, or maybe somebody we help us connect with people. So it's not just the story, but how you tell the story that makes a difference. So I think listening to him not only tells you how to deliver your speech rather than just rushing it through the speech sometimes, which I used to do when I joined Toastmasters. Let me admit that it's not just rushing it through, but I think the delivery is very important.
True, Chetan. Kory is back. Over to you, Kory.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now we are about to start the defining part of our story. We talked about mining. This is, again, let's reiterate, this is the diamond hour. So we are mining. We have mined for stories. We are defining stories right now, defining our speech. And we're going to go back into the fundamentals of speech giving with the structure. We have to start off with structure. Again, we're going to go back to Toastmasters 101 and our competent communicator, or our first level in pathways. We have to have structure. An opening, a body, and a conclusion. In that opening, just related to that opening, you've got to have a title. And you may have a title at the beginning, you may have a title in the middle, you may find the title at the beginning of this process, you may find it in the middle, you may find it at the end, you may need external help in order to find that title, but you've got to have a title that grabs your audience. This is prime real estate that helps your personal brand. And it lets the audience wonder, or it may very well be a straightforward answer to something in the speech. I'm working on a speech about how I confront my dad's killer called Gut Instinct. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into that here. You can check me out when I'm competing, but it's called Gut Instinct. And that makes you lean forward and want to pay attention. Be mindful of the use of your title because it sets everything up. So in your opening, you're starting from a broad perspective and coming down to a narrow perspective. And in that, you have a thesis statement. That thesis statement limits the scope of your speech. And the reason why that is important is you don't want this to turn out like a second grade book report where it's broad and says very little. This is going to be a focused speech. So your thesis statement has to give your audience the roadmap, the treasure map, if you will, toward the treasures that are buried in your speech. We can talk about that further in a moment or two. Now, your body of the speech is, yes, indeed, Jeff, the simpler, the better. I was going to get to that. You've been peeking ahead. Jeff. The body is where everything happens. Now, in that, we have a plot. Write these things down. You have plot. On the next line, right underneath that, message. Underneath that, write characters. Underneath that, write conflict. And I will give you 2 bonuses in just a moment. But plot is what happens in your speech. Characters, to whom said actions occur. Message is the gift that you want your audience to take away. And then we're getting into the thing that we absolutely positively must have, conflict. You have to have conflict because conflict is the catalyst for change. Let me say that again. Conflict is the catalyst for change. Nothing happens in a story where there's no conflict. Nothing. You may as well have a paperweight. Nothing happens without conflict. When I was talking about the drive home, here was my conflict. It was a detour. I didn't want to take the detour because I wanted to go home the way I wanted to go home. Now, the conflict can be external. It can be an argument or a fight between 2 people or more, or it can be an internal conflict. And that is what catalyzes the change. At the end of the story, at the end of your speech, you have shown that you have changed. And along the way, your audience has also seen that change, and they may very well be changed as well. Conflict. It's vital to everything. I promised you 2 extra little pillars, 2 extra little bits that are going to go along. There are dialogue, and dialogue shows, well, dialogue can show and tell at the same time. Instead of a narrator constantly telling you this, and this happened, it might very well be better placed by that confrontational dialogue between you and someone else. In one of my speeches called Silhouettes, there's a very tense moment where I am pulled over by police officers. And the police officers want to know where I was coming from. And I ask them, what do they want? They say, Don't ask any questions. You fit the description. Tall black man wearing glasses. And there it is. There's the conflict. Because I am tall, black, and wearing glasses. And it dawns on me and the audience at the same time that I'm the wrong guy in the wrong place at seemingly the right time. And how do I get out of it? That's a moment that hangs in the audience. And because it's been defined by dialogue, the tension has been ratcheted up, and we know that something has to happen. The other bonus is movement. And that is an outgrowth of the conflict, right? Usually we are going from some place to some other place, from a start to a destination. And in that start to the destination, from that start to that destination, something happens to us. And that's a physical movement. At the same time, we also have that internal movement. This is the way I was, this thing happened, and this is where I am now because of that change in event. All these elements need to be in that body of your speech. I would recommend usually just telling one story, and in that one story, taking you on that journey from who you were to something that happened to you, to the change that came thereafter, to the enlightenment of this moment, and that's your conclusion. And then you move to your conclusion. We all have had experiences that we have mined from our little black books with our pens that can show that arc. And it is in that moment that we are thinking, this is pretty good. I'm feeling pretty comfortable with this. And at that moment, I would tell you, keep writing. Keep writing past what you think is the end of the story. So we have a plot. This is what happens. This is that message. And the message is what we want our audience to take away. Characters. I would challenge you to keep your character defined and few. Yourself and one, maybe two other people. Maximum two. Because the more characters you have, the more your audience wants to know about them. Define your characters. Keep them small in number. Conflict. What happened that forces the change? Use dialogue, because dialogue shows and tells at the same time. It's also a wonderful way to insert humor, because a lot of times the funniest things that happen are the things that are said by our peers. And lastly, movement. That movement has to be regarding our personal changes and the change that we also want to see in our audience. And now your conclusion. Your conclusion, if you were going to fold a piece of paper, I'm going to fold a piece of paper. Ideally, your beginning and end match up. And if you fold it again like this, the middle part of your section mirrors the other. And that is kind of the way I check, does my conclusion match my opening? It doesn't have to be a perfect match. It can be close enough. But it doesn't, your conclusion should not introduce something brand new into your speech. It should be wrapping up, tying off all the same things that were brought up in your opening. You can reiterate your thesis statement. I'm perfectly comfortable with that. When you do that, you hope to have proven your thesis statement true. And if you haven't, you got some rewriting to do. But if you have, it's going to look like this. Opening on one side, conclusion on the other side. It's folded up. It tracks pretty well. The body of your speech matches pretty well, in and out. Into the conflict, out of the conflict. The change is contained in the middle. And it should look like that. If it doesn't, you're going to rewrite. And that's something that I have to tell you. You're going to rewrite. It's going to be edited. It's going to be edited again. Many times I will do 60, 70 iterations. And why does this matter? It matters because you are defining that diamond. You're seeing what it can be. You're holding it up to the light. You're letting the light refract through it. And you're seeing the possibilities and the potential in this. We'll jump back to mining for a quick second. I do not believe there has ever been a Toastmaster who wrote one speech and it wrote one speech and it was perfect from the very first time all the way to the championship round. You can see potential. You've dug it out of the earth. You've taken the dirt off of it. You're holding it up to the light and you can see the potential in it, but it's still raw. That's fine. The more comfortable you are with all of those tools, the easier that the refining process becomes. This is the hardest part to date. Of the two, mining was difficult. Refining is difficult. And you're going to keep working. Any questions so far? Good. I haven't seen any. So again, the fundamentals of this are that you have a memorable title. And somewhere along in this creative process, that title is bubbling up to you. You may have the title at the beginning. You may be working on it, and then how do I catch up with time stress? Very good question. And we will jump into that in the third segment, which is going to be refining. I would say to you, good doctor, write more than is necessary. You write, if you have this thought. Good question, J5. We'll deal with that in a moment. Write more than necessary. My eldest son, Xavier, had to do confirmation when he was in 8th grade for church, religious studies at our church. And you have to write this confirmation statement. And Xavier wrote one sentence. And I looked at him and I said, son, you have to write a confirmation paragraph. What can we do with this sentence? And he said, well, that's how I feel. And I said, write everything you can possibly think about how you're feeling. Get it down on paper. because it's easier to edit down to something than it is to inflate up. So keep writing. Write everything that you can feel about this moment, this story, because it is vital for you to have too much material. It's so easy to trim down. Well, I shouldn't say it's easy, but it's easier to trim down than it is to try to reconnect to the creative spirit that gave you this story and this perspective at first. Write too much. Sometimes on standard speech, I say, let's see, Press Vasilev's was 450 words. Sometimes my first iteration is 1,200. But I look at that and I say, all right, I'm happy with that because it's my first draft. So write more than necessary. The reason why you want to do that is because it's kind of like a reduction when we are cooking. Sometimes you add just enough heat, or spinach, right? You get this giant bag of spinach, you get 5 pounds of spinach, and it looks like you'll never eat that much spinach, but then you put it in a pot with a little bit of water and you put the pot lid on it, and 10 minutes later you have a cup of spinach. That's what we're doing. You all have got all this extra material. Go ahead, we'll deal with the extra because that's okay. So write to your hearts. Thank you, Manish. It is it's fine to have too much on your first draft. Be patient with yourself, but enjoy the creative process. And once you're done with that first draft, get up, walk around, have yourself a soda pop or a scoop of ice cream, or if you need to go work out, then go ahead and work out. Feel good about that because you are in the defining step. Or rather, yes, you are in the defining step. With regard to the title, you can jot down any ideas that you want. Sometimes you're going to have the lightning bolt eureka moment, pow, and the light bulb goes off and the lightning bolt strikes, and you're going to have that title. Other times, you're going to be halfway through writing and it's going to come to you. Other times, it's going to be at the end. Sometimes you're going to need to ask your outside group for their perspective. Ultimately, you've got to remember that you are in control of this speech, and finding that title is your responsibility. I know that probably doesn't make you feel really good and you wanted a slam dunk answer. I can't give you a slam dunk answer because sometimes titles are the most difficult things to put up. Rajendra, I will jump in on that in just a moment. We will be going into the refining moments, and we will, after refining moments, we were going to do a Q&A, and I would like for you to, at that point, turn on your cameras and start addressing questions that way. I'm having fun. I hope you all are too. Just a second. I'm a little dry. I have 3 of these to make it through this. All right. So we've gone through the structure here. And with structure, it is, you must hew to structure. If you don't have this structure, your audience is going to have a hell of a time following you, as are the judges. And it needs to be linear, organized so that you've got your opening, body, and conclusion. And I know I'm hammering on this, but as a competitor and as also a judge, if I can't follow you, I can't tell you how brilliant you are by voting for you. Your structure has to be there. Another thing that you may want to do is download a copy of the judge's ballot. And when you go through that, it will acquaint you with everything that the judge is looking for in your speech. And structure is a part of it. That's a tip. Now, the rest of the judge's ballot will be dealt with a little later on. But for now, you need to understand how important structure is. Toastmasters spends a ton of time, especially in the legacy program, with the competent communicator, focusing on the fundamentals. You got to have the fundamentals down pat, because this is a moment where they're explicitly being looked for. Title, opening, thesis statement, body, plot, message, characters, conflict, dialogue, movement, conclusion. That wraps up what you are, that proves what you have shown us in the body of your speech, as well as mirrors your opening. Those are the fundamentals that a good judge is going to be paying attention to, and that's going to resonate with your audience. I want to also make sure that you understand that the Hollywood ending, or maybe the Bollywood ending, as the case may be, doesn't have to happen. You don't necessarily have to have the happy ending. It's nice, but life doesn't always reflect the happy ending. Sometimes reality is that we don't have the happiest ending. However, if your structure is strong and you've delivered, that's more than enough. Structure. It can't go forward without that. And that's what we mean about defining. We're going to take a couple minutes for a bio break, and then we'll come back and go into the last part of this, which is refining. And then in this refining moment, we're going to talk about techniques that help us practice and polish. We'll address the time constraints. We will address practice. We're talking about practice. That's an Allen Iverson comment. And we'll talk about the techniques you're going to need as you go into the contest itself. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
So Tuba, share your experience and we can ask others also.
I'm looking forward to learning how to structure the content in a better way. And I also have some exciting questions that I want to ask Kory about his, because he's been to the semi-finals 4 times. So I want to know from him, how's the experience been, a little bit off topic, but that's something I'm looking forward to asking him.
Yes. We all can keep prepare your questions for him. Elizabeth, would you like to share your experience so far? You can unmute yourself and share.
Do we have Ehsan?
Yes, I'm here.
So Ehsan, how's it going on for you?
I'm really liking this, especially the way he has structured this entire session, right? Of mining, defining, and refining. These are like the perfect gems of writing a speech, and I'm really enjoying it. Enjoying it.
Same here.
We have Krishna. Krishna, would you like to share?
We also have Kannagi.
Hello, Kannagi. Yes.
And we're back. Thank you. As we're rounding into the final portion of our conversation here, this is refining. There is a lot of overlap between what we do in the refining process and what we've done in the previous two steps. Let's reiterate, we've done mining, we found the ideas, defining, making sure how it looks. Now, in the refining stage, this is the hardest part to date. I know I've said that about each segment, but as you're going through each process, when you're first starting out with your mining process, it's hard. And then you've got an idea, and then you're defining it. Well, and that's hard. And then now here we are in the refining statement, and it's hard. Understand this. Let me be perfectly clear. This is hard. And there's a reason why out of all the Toastmasters that start off, one wins. And it's because that one person has been working really, really hard. We have our first draft. So the first thing that I would do at this point after my first draft, I've gotten up, I've gotten myself some ice cream, and I'm feeling good. I look at my word count in whichever word processing document you've got. I look at my word count. And now it's 1,200 words. Oh boy. And then I time it. I read it and I time it. So that's what I would do, read and time. And I see this is at 9 minutes and 47 seconds. Well, that's not going to do because we have to stay in time. Toastmasters contest parameters for time are 4 minutes, 30 seconds. Anything under 4:30, disqualified. 7 minutes, 30 seconds, maximum. Anything over 7:30, DQ. Let me share a story. The second time I was going after a humorous speech title. I had a killer speech. Oh, it was fantastic. It was hilarious. I had the audience cracking up and I knew I was going to win. Whoo, oh, man, I could smell that trophy. I could taste it. I wanted it in my sweaty little hands. I knew it was mine. audience laughed where I wanted them to laugh, I killed. This is at the area contest. The guy whose speech was against mine, it was okay, but it wasn't as good as mine was. Mine was killer. Whew. When they announced, he won. He won because he stayed in time. I got DQ'd because I went 2 seconds over. 2 seconds. 2. And let me tell you, the reason why that stings to this day is the name of that speech was Details, Details. I missed the details. I didn't pay attention to the details. That's the title of my speech. I blew it. So what did I do? I sat on that speech and worked on it for an entire year. Made it better, made it stronger. Guess what? Next year, 7 minutes on the dot. Kept working it, refining it, polishing it. So I went through the area contest, sailed through the division contest. I'm going for the district championship. I've made changes, and I'm going to tell you it's an ongoing process of improvement. District championship. Nailed it. 7 minutes on the dot. No need to worry about disqualifications. It's up to you to be the responsible person to know your time. So learn it from me. Don't go over. Don't go over in time. And I will tell you how you can do that. First of all, videotape yourself. You're going to videotape yourself and watch it 4 different ways. First of all, you're going to watch it on fast forward. So you're going to be flailing around on stage. That's okay. But what that does is set aside, it will give you a visual indicator of what your hand gestures are. And you will see on fast forward whatever annoying hand gestures you have. The second thing that you do is watch at regular speed on mute. Can you tell what's going on? The third way you watch it is audio only. And the fourth way you do it is watch it audio and video simultaneously, just normal video. Why we watch it fast forward? I talked about this just a second ago. It allows you to see your annoying hand gestures and your annoying body movements. And it's exacerbated and exaggerated because of fast forward. 2, when you watch it on silent, you see your body language and you can ask yourself, how am I telling this story in regular time? Because this is what people see. Third, for audio, I want you to take a transcript of your speech, and every place that you stumbled, I want you to put a tick mark, because that's telling you that the language isn't quite right. Fourth and finally, watch it final video. You will find ways to discard language, and some of it may very well be the best, most beautiful language you've ever created. Save it, put it in a separate document. I have a document file of what I call my little darlings. Sometimes you have to kill your darlings because they don't fit in your speech. And it might be the most beautiful language, but if it doesn't fit in your speech, it sticks out like a sore thumb. Save that beautiful language and put that in a different file, and you may come back to it because there may very well be a moment where some of that beautiful language fits most appropriately in a different and other speech. It's important to target your language, all right? I used to be a high school debater, which meant that I used a lot of big words and I spoke really fast. The first woman who believed that I could be something better than just an average speaker said, Kory, you've got to stop that. Stop speaking so fast. And then she said something that has changed my storytelling style entirely. Remember your audience and how they listen. Most newspapers are targeting a reading level of between 4th grade and 6th grade. Speak to people in language they can understand. So if you've got a lot of big words, use them selectively, but speak to people in a language they can understand, in a language they can follow. Because if they don't know a word, they're going to think on that, and then the speech has passed them by and they're trying to catch up. Be mindful of the language that you use. Keep it simple. I will condense that whole message into this. Complex is for you, the author. Simple is for your audience. Complex is about making you feel good. Simple is about making your audience feel good. The simpler, the better. Your story can have twists and turns, but your language needs to be simple. Now, as regarding memorization, yes, we do want to memorize it, but then we need to relax with it. You are the experience, and you are the expert on your experience. And with you being the expert on your experience, once you've written it out and you know the language and you've internalized it, tell the story, relax, let it breathe. Sometimes we have a difficulty in acknowledging our own knowledge of the stories that are within us. Write it out. Find those languages that work well for you. Find those passages, those strong moments that pull us all together, that unify us, and tell the story then. There's a difference between telling a story at a bar and on stage, but it's not that much of a difference. Because if we eliminate the likes and the so's and we distill it down into the essence of the story, the mechanics of telling that story to a group of your friends is not very difficult, or is not very different rather, from telling a story to a group of complete strangers, because it's the comfort that you have to relate that story. When I see people struggling with gestures and things like that, it's because they have not become comfortable with the story. When we practice something enough, We achieve a muscle memory, or as some martial artists might say, thought non-thought. It's, oh, I see it, I react, I do. And we need to get to that level of proficiency and comfort with presenting, not necessarily presenting this particular story, but with the ability to get up and tell a story, not this particular story, just in general. Comfort. Because the more comfort that you have in relating a story, even now on Zoom, the more comfort it's going to translate and show through as you are relating the story into the future. Let's see. I practice as I want to perform. So at the area contests, and yes, I have to go through area contests as well. I go through club contests and area contests as well. And what does that mean? I always work to have, if I'm at the area or if I'm at my club contest, I have prepared as though I am at the area contest. Once I'm at the area contest, I have prepared as though I am at the division contest. At the division contest, I have prepared as though I am at the district contest. At the district contest, I prepare as though I am on the semifinal stage. And at the semifinal stage, I prepare as though I am on the world championship stage. Because the more comfort you have and the expectation that you have for putting your work forward and advancing it ahead, it will reflect in how you are perceived. So I always work at minimally one level ahead. And so the expectations are greater for me. My internal expectations are greater on content, delivery, style, gestures, body language, vocal variety, all those things that judges are looking for. I want to be ahead. Along the way to each contest, you are polishing and practicing, refining that diamond, chipping off those burrs. You are constantly viewing video. You're constantly listening to your content, reading it. If it doesn't sound smooth, find a better way to reiterate that passage. Find a better way to say that passage. Because your audience will hear that. If it's unclear, your audience will pick up on that. How do you practice? I would say try to hit your club once or twice. More than twice, unless you've made significant changes on your speech, your audience knows what's coming. And they're not going to be able to give you new-eyed, insightful critique. Remember how in the previous segment I talked about be on the lookout for unexpected treasure? Your audience has now decided to drive home with you the same route over and over again. And unless you change something, they're going to be expecting the punchlines and know exactly where you're going. So it's incumbent upon you to create some detours or change things up, because that's the way of progress. Progress suggests that we're constantly tweaking. Let's see, about practice, also practice in the clothing that you're planning to wear so that you feel what your gestures look like in that outfit. Because of this virtual environment, know the venue that you're going to be sending your video from. If it's your apartment, Make sure you set out the right space so that you are in video. Set aside quiet time so that people aren't running in and out of the house, making noise while you're recording and practicing. Whatever time you're going to devote to your practice, you need to be all in on that. No distractions, working it through. If you're working with somebody, your partner, whomever that may be, needs to be focused in as well. Turn off your phone or set a 30-minute timer and work intensely for 30 minutes. Break, walk away, do something differently, then come back to it. In your apartment, as you are laying out the video floor, what I do is mark off I stand behind my video camera. I see where what my video frame is, and I'm starting to put Post-it notes on the wall so that I can easily define behind me what I'm seeing. Then I also put down Post-it notes on my floor, and I start to pay attention to what the outer limits of the right side and the left side are on the camera view. So then I know I'm always in camera. And those Post-it notes on the floor are the ones that say, hey, this is out of bounds, this is in bounds. The ones on the wall I remove before I start recording, but I just need to know how far back I can go, how far forward, to the right and to the left. Those things are pivotal because you don't want to be out of frame when you're delivering a most powerful line. Let's see. What else? Oh, you know what? We can start to take questions right now. If you want to turn on your cameras and start asking questions, I will start addressing them as you send them to me or as you open up and ask them. J5, I see you. Would you unmute?
Yeah, greetings from Australia.
Thank you, sir.
My question is about doing dialogue. On the stage, we look, we're looking like that. How do we do dialogue? Where do we look when we're on Zoom?
Oh, very good question. I would look a little off stage. So if I'm creating a dialogue, I'm looking this way and pivoting this way. So it doesn't have to be a big move because remember, we're in our boxes, but if yeah, you can look a little head motion and at the same time use vocal variety to define your characters. Was there a further question? J5.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
It can also, you can also do, I don't want to, I'm sitting down and the problem is if I stand up, you're going to see my midriff. So you can pivot slightly and create one character and pivot the other direction and create the other character as well. And that pivot will signify. And if you're using the vocal variety, it will help with the definition of character. Thank you, Jim. Miss Jordan.
Hello. First, I want to say that in my 10 years in Toastmasters, I have never heard a speech that was so comprehensive and wonderfully delivered. I'm so grateful that I came across your speech by pure accident. And it is just filled with gems. So thank you very much for that.
Funny you should say gems. Because this is the Diamond Hour. The Diamond Hour and a half.
But my question to you, what would you say about the role of using quotes and rhetorical devices and so on in your speech, in the speech?
It's kind of like Lowry's seasoning salt. I don't know whether you have that where you are, but it's a savory seasoning salt, and use it judiciously. It enhances the flavor, but no one wants to eat a cup of the seasoning salt. You sprinkle that in judiciously, and that's just enough. If you open with a quote, you better be able to substantiate that quote, or you'd better be able to tie your story to that quote. Rhetorical devices are fine when we're asking a question of a world that we would like to see. If we're asking for an audience reaction, don't we do that? That's a rhetorical device that's drawing the audience in. I would say use them judiciously. Be very, very sparing in that. Remember, you can have up to 25% of your speech being quotes that are attributed to somebody else, but that means that you've ceded 25% to somebody else, and you've got to work to make sure that your 75% is all you. And I'd much rather see more of you than somebody else, because a lot of times audiences are going to tune out or say, hey, is that accurate? Is that real quote? Let me look at my phone. And all of a sudden they've missed 30 seconds of your content, and they're wondering around, what did I miss? What did I miss? Dr. Oh, whoops, wait a second. Miss Jordan, did I answer your question? Thank you. Dr. Atul Srivastava?
Yeah.
There you are.
I first of all do agree with Elizabeth that me too have heard such a nice talk after a very long time, when you had been extremely sincere, sir. Thank you very much for everything that you shared with us. And in fact, you have already answered my question on the time stress, to wind up the speech within the time. During practice time, I find that I am well within time, but when during the D-Day, during the contest, you feel that one has to rush. Sometimes I rush, maybe due to stress, but probably I will have to predefine in my speech what are the areas which require pause, to have an impact, and what are the areas where I can go fast. It has to be pre-rehearsed, not that on the spot I keep on pausing everywhere alike. And that is where at a division contest once I lost. When I saw the yellow card, I thought that, oh my God, I still have 3 minutes of my speech to go. And after that, I lost my balance. So after that, whenever I deliver my speech, I become conscious of that sad moment, and I develop the stress on time. So I have to be looks like I have to be very mechanical in my delivery, where, at what time, which of my paragraphs should be, at 5, or which one should be at 6, and things like that.
That's exactly where you reminded me of something. Your level of proficiency, when you start off, I'm going to use a pyramid. When we start off, there are so many things there are so many variables that we're trying to control. Gestures and time and vocabulary, vocal variety, everything. That's the base of the pyramid, right? But as we are refining and defining, you're dealing with fewer and fewer issues, until the big thing that you want to know is what, and you will get to a level of proficiency where you know what word you are supposed to be on at 5. You know what word you're supposed to be on at 6, and you know what word you're supposed to be on at 7, and wrap it up. More often than not, if you have practiced and edited and practiced and edited and practiced and edited, you will know exactly where you're supposed to be at 5, 6, and 7, and wrapping up right as you see that red light. Or it may be shorter than that, that you're out at 6 minutes and 30 seconds. Remember, complex is for the writer, simple is for your audience. And as you continually grind, polishing your diamond here, that's where that moment comes in, where, hey, I know exactly where I am at the 5 minute mark. I'm good. 6, 7. We don't have to worry about laugh lines because this is all going to be virtual. They said there was an email from Toastmasters just last night that said that Nashville is going to be postponed. It's going to be virtual. So this plays to our hand as speakers. There should be no excuse for anyone to go over 7 minutes and 30 seconds because we don't have to have the audience reaction time. Because in a large room with 100 people or 1,000 people, when you say something very funny, it's going to take 5 to 6 seconds for it to ripple from the moment that you say it all the way out to the back of the room and back in. You don't have that now. You still can pause for humorous effect. You can pause for dramatic effect, but there should be no reason why we can't stay within. Thank you for that reminder, good sir. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much for being with us. It has been a tremendous knowledge sharing, and we are feeling very, very blessed to have you with us.
Oh, thank you. I am humbled. Wait, let's see. We've got more questions. Isan, how may I help you?
Yeah, so first of all, thank you so much for coming and sharing this with us. It was truly a very delightful session. In the initial parts of your session, you mentioned something called a thesis statement. Can you elaborate? Do you mean are you trying to tell us the title or the plot of the speech? What is exactly a thesis statement?
So a thesis statement essentially gives you the, it's similar to the title. It's like first cousin to the title, but but it's the roadmap. Let's see. Let me dig up a thesis statement here. Just a second. I knew there was going to be one person who was going to ask me a tough question, a tougher question that's going to make me dig around in things. Let's see. Let's see here. So for me, in my speech gut instinct, where did I put that? So here's my opening line. Let's see. Honored guests, fellow Toastmasters, we often say we begin to live as a child. However, I found that I will begin to live when I turn 54. So what that means, that sets up everything in my speech. So my opening line is this. I was 39 when I chose to confront my dad's killer. This was a meeting that had been 28 years in the making. It's time to fight. I remove my clothes, swallow the Vicodin, and drift away. Honored guests, fellow Toastmasters, when do we begin to live? Is it at birth or at age 54? Now, I've set up tension. I've set up a question. that I'm going to be able to answer later on in the speech. And it gives you this roadmap sort of, ooh, I'm interested, and here we go in the future. Does that help?
Yes, yes, definitely. Thank you.
Let's see. Wow, we've got all kinds of questions popping in here. Udenor had a question. I saw him raise his hand.
Yes, Udinor has one question. Udinor, you can unmute. Okay, let me. Yes, you can unmute yourself.
Uh,
Yes.
Good evening, sir. Thank you very much for your speech, sir. Many
Thank
takeaways. Sir, I just want to know how would it be easy for the memory part while presenting our speech, how to memorize our speech easily? That part, how to make it easy? That's my question, sir.
Oh, well, I didn't say it was going to be easy. So there's several ways, and one of the ways that I would share with you is most people start at the beginning, and when they start at the beginning, the introduction is generally really polished. The first couple of paragraphs are polished, and then they get into the middle of the speech, and it's wobbly jello, and it's just like, well, we don't want that. So what I do, here's one of my techniques. I memorize from the end backwards. Because for maximum impact, I want my conclusion to be rock solid. And then as I am working backwards, the middle gets stronger. And then finally, I'm at the beginning. And every time I'm working it, so I'll start with the very last line. Then I'll do the second to last line and the last line. Then the third to last line, the second to last line, and the last line. And then I'm doing it all the way backwards up to the beginning. And by that time, I will have memorized the entire speech from backwards forward. And when I start with that last speech, or with the first word of the first line, I know everything that's going to follow. Now, once I've done that, then what I do is call it chunking, okay? I color code each paragraph. And each paragraph is, well, I correspond it. So I have the introduction color coded, and then I've got the body color coded in different colors as whatever seems to be logical. And then I have the conclusion color coded as well. And what this allows me to do is a technique called chunking. And when I would practice, each spot on my floor is color coordinated. So red belongs in one spot, green belongs in another spot, purple belongs in another spot, red belongs in another spot, black is another spot. I go to that place on the floor, and I deliver that paragraph. I go to the next place on the floor, I deliver that paragraph. I can throw them out of order, and I know where I'm supposed to be. I go to that spot, I deliver those lines. And by chunking, I am comfortable everywhere. Now I'm telling you this because you asked so nicely. Most people aren't going to do this, aren't going to take the time to do that work, but I do. And it allows me to stop and start in different places. I'm comfortable with each particular paragraph. If I find something that is absolutely hysterical or powerful, I can stop, insert that, pick up where the next line is, and keep going. And that's not only because I've memorized it, it's because I have internalized it as well. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you. Let's see. Jim from Australia. J5, my buddy. Mr. Contest Chair, ladies and gentlemen. I don't do it like that. I usually say honored guests, fellow Toastmasters, and the contest chair. Some people don't like to do it. I do it just because that's how it was drilled into me. As simple as I can acknowledge it. Honored guests, because they're the most important people. The guests, honored guests, fellow Toastmasters, Madam Contest Chair or Mr. Contest Chair, so that that contest chair can sit down. I get it in and out as quickly as possible. Now, props, that was for from Joseph or Santosh Joseph?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
How much does prop play in a speech? Okay, it's again like Lowry seasoning salt. A little bit goes a long way, but if you use it badly, everyone remembers. If you use them well, it depends. It will be noted as how it enhances. If it's just average, but everyone will notice if you screw it up. So it comes to your proficiency and your decision to use props correctly and well. Remember also, if you were meeting virtual, or if you were meeting in real time, you are responsible for the props being set up on stage if the sergeant at arms doesn't want to do that. So that's going to come down to your personal choice. Is it going to enhance your speech? There's the risk reward of that is it going to enhance your speech? If it's going to enhance your speech, do it. If you do it well, bravo. If you don't do it well, if it's not coming together as you're practicing and watching it on video, then you've got some difficult decisions to make. Now, the next question was from the TNT member. Any suggestion when incorporating a repeating hook or line? Yes, do it. Because that may very well be, you can tie that to your thesis. Craig Valentine calls it a foundational phrase. He won the world championship in, I believe, 1999. It reiterates your point. Again, I find it powerful to use the repetition of a phrase. And you may follow the rule of 3, use it 3 times in the speech. You may use it in your opening. You may use it 3 times in your body. You may use it again to bring the point home in your conclusion. You may use it more. It's all going to come back down to your particular taste and how powerful and effective it is in making your point. I'm looking for another question.
Tuba had some questions she was asking. Tuba, you can.
All right.
Yeah, Kory. So this is something out of topic. I wanted to know how was your experience being a semi-finalist, because I'm sure it's stressful competing with all the best. So how was your experience?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I guess that's my cue to start bringing home the improvement mindset. When I went the first time in 2010, I was terrified. I had no idea what I was doing. I was as humble as a lost coyote pup in the wilderness. I had no idea. And I thought I didn't belong. I thought I'd gotten lucky. And at the same time, I also thought, oh, I'll be back next year. No, it was 5 years. I went in 2010 to Palm Desert, California, and I took it for granted. But in 5 years, when I hadn't made it back, I finally had all my experience that I'm sharing with you today happened in those 5 years. Recommitment to fundamentals, working to find ideas, all of that. And I came back a much better speaker. And I knew I had something good. I knew I had something good. And in Las Vegas, I went in a semifinal against Manoj Vasudevan, and he would go on to place third in the world that year. But he beat me by that much in the semifinal. The deliberation for judges normally takes, they normally have it about 5 or 6 minutes after the contestant interviews, but it was 30 minutes and it had to be that close. Manoj beat me and I ended up being top 20 in the world that year. And not trying to sound like a jerk, but there's a trophy, right? And at that point, I knew I belonged. And I didn't belong because I got lucky. I belonged because there was a whole lot of hard work that went into it. There was a whole lot of hard work that had gone into it. And it was a tough semifinal. There were very good speakers all the way around, but you belong. And then 2017, I didn't do it in 2016. 2017, no, I got knocked out early in 2016. 2017 was in Vancouver. And at Vancouver, I told a fantastic speech. I shared it. I shared a fantastic story. And you know what? I didn't advance. I was heartbroken. And I was stomping around Vancouver like Godzilla in Tokyo. Ah! I was upset. But what happened afterwards was when I'm sitting at an ice cream, when I'm sitting at a store eating sorbet, I'm eating sorbet by the pound. I'm just stuffing my face. And someone comes up to me and says, Kory, you don't know me, but your speech touched me. And I'm mid face stuff, right? I've got a big old glob of ice cream on this spoon and I'm like, what? And they got me by telling me that my speech had touched them. And it wasn't about the trophy that I didn't get. That person's words were the trophy that I won that night. Now, 5 or 6 other people came up to me that night and said, your speech touched me. And that was another moment where I realized that I'm in the right place at the right time, doing the right things. Fast forward to 2018 in Chicago. Chicago is only a 4-hour drive from where I'm from, here in Iowa. And I ended up in a semifinal and I took 3rd place. Again, it affirms the work. And yes, there is some luck of the draw, but in terms of the work that gets you there, that you've been working on that speech, your speech, from the day you were born, in terms of feelings and experiences. And your ability to mine them is what's moving you forward all the way along the line. So we were talking at one point about the improvement process or the improvement mindset. You've got these tools. And it all depends on how you want to use them. And if you choose to use them, you're going to see results. You're definitely going to see results. But I can't make you use these tools. All I can do is help present them, and I can come back and talk to you, and I can come back and chat you up and look things over. But that all has to come from within. That's where I found it. I didn't get here by myself. I've been mentored and coached, and sometimes I'll pay for a coach. Sometimes I won't. Sometimes I'm paying attention to my instincts. Yes. There's more. The more that you ask questions, the more information starts to percolate. Oh my, we've got about 10 minutes and I've got so much more to talk about, I guess. So that was to Elizabeth. It can very well be a coach that helps you out, but the coach should be pulling your best out of you rather than you necessarily relying on the coach to do so much for you. All right. The coach is going to grab you or grab your speech and say, line by line, this is necessary. Is this necessary? What if you did this? How about this? Can you try this? Please, I suggest you try this. What about this? And that should be the influence of a coach. They can be worth your money. I'm not in the business of recommending, of telling somebody who they should go with. But if that's what you are interested in, by all means, find the referrals and things like that. Tuba, did I answer your question?
Yes. Do you still get scared when you go on the stage, or like, are you chilled and relaxed? Like, how is it?
Well, it's a little bit of both. My daughter Olivia asked me that, Dad, do you ever get scared? And I said to her, I'm only scared if I'm unprepared. And I am not unprepared. I know when my contests are. I know what is expected of me. I know what I expect of myself. And I'm not scared. I do have a routine of what I do before I speak. Usually it's 2 or so hours before the actual contest, maybe 3 hours before the contest. I go up to my room, I shower, and then I laid out my clothes in advance, and then I get dressed, and I am just trying to harness the energy, because at this point, you know it's time. It's like a roller coaster. You've gone up that giant incline, and you're at the top of that hill, and that front car is just about to go over, and you hear that chain go ping, and then you start shooting down that big hill, and it's all on momentum from here on out. Oh my goodness, I'm having the time of my life. It's that moment. Now, I have headphones and a playlist that I start listening to music beforehand so that I'm getting wired up. And I have all this adrenaline ready to go. And I use this term guidedly and guardedly. I want to detonate on stage. I want you to feel this explosion of energy from me that fills the room. And if you're not exhausted by the end of your 6.5 to 7 minutes, you haven't given the audience everything you've got. You should be wiped out because you've put your heart, your soul, everything. You've leveraged your house in terms of energy so that you can give it to them. And when you walk off stage, you walk off with no regrets. You gave the best that you can. Now, admittedly, that's the evolution of things, but you have to find that limit, and you've got to give that part of yourself. You make yourself completely vulnerable on stage. You make yourself absolutely, you can be foolish. Sometimes the best medicine is when you are laughed at because you've done something stupid. but you're making yourself vulnerable in terms of being able to be laughed at. You're being vulnerable in terms of revealing how your heart has been broken, or how angry you got because something was unfair. You're revealing a portion of yourself to your audience. And that sincerity flows all the way through. Those universal experiences make your speech personal. And if people feel your sincerity and that personal touch, they're resonating with you. This is a harmonic vibration. They're resonating with you. Any more questions?
Kory, I have one question.
Yeah.
What I feel is, yeah, in a speech draft, as you said, that we have to come up only one story and go into deep of that story aligned with the message. I feel a struggle in going deep into a one by one story. So I try to accumulate many stories, then try to draft the speech. So how should we work to stick with only one story and I get aligned with the central message of the speech?
Okay, so if I heard you correctly, you were asking, how do you go deep into one story?
Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of times our stories, we want to tell an epic story, like the Iliad, the Odyssey, the Aeneid, the Epic of Gilgamesh. No, we want to take that down to one little story. Let's see. One of the stories that I told was the first time that somebody called me the N-word here in the States. And I talk and I tell my dad this happened, and my dad takes me to the bathroom closet, to the bathroom mirror, and says some very powerful words. And then he says, Kory, go back and make that boy say your name. Now I get beat up on, happens on a Monday. I get beat up on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and by Friday though, he says my name. And I think everything is good. And for a number of years, I think everything is fine. Now I have a family. And my second grade daughter comes home and she won't make eye contact. And she asks me, Daddy, what's the N-word? And I don't know what to do because my little girl is in pain. I'm in pain. I want to comfort her. And then I remember the words that my dad tells me. And I take her to the bathroom full-length mirror and I say those words and she gets comfort. And that's the end of the story. So instead of it being the whole, every time that someone's ever told me that, or ever called me the N-word, it's two really tight episodes, one that happens when I'm a kid, and the wisdom that I take to tell my baby girl, hey, this worked for me. And in that moment, there's depth because we can relate to having someone bully us and a solution. And then all of a sudden, when it happens to our kid again, it highlights the fact, one, that we've been given some wisdom that's going to help other people. And two, that bullying still happens. And in those two things, we've got our story, right? And the depth is created by the fact that bullying still happens, and many of us have been on the receiving end of bullying, but there's a solution. And we were taught the solution, and I'm going to teach the solution to my daughter. And there's that depth. Does that make sense? So keep shortening your vision. Keep shortening your vision till you have one episode. And that one episode is where now it's one episode and you can go deeper into it. And in that depth, you've got your feelings, your experiences, your physical well-being, all those sorts of things that you can start to tap into the visceral side of things. And we all have had a moment or 10 where we're thinking, this is the absolute lowest point in my life. I'm never going to get out of here, and this is awful. And even though this is like the worst 3 minutes of my life, it felt like the worst 30 years of my life. Well, let's keep punching this back out. And the hope that starts to come out of it is that I survived that moment. It was painful, it was awful. And here's how that experience changed me for the better. Or here's how someone gave me help to change my life for the better. Is that helpful?
Yes, it is really very helpful.
I am humbled by your kindness, good sir. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Manish Desktop. Are there any, before we all go, I wanted to get to this improvement mindset. And let's go back to, can I get back to full screen with it? Oh, there we go, gallery view. There we go. And if everybody could turn on their camera, I'd really appreciate that. That would be helpful. I'll be patient. And for everybody who's stuck around, I appreciate this. And here's the improvement mindset. We are made of the same elements that stars are comprised of. And we are carbon-based life forms. And while we cannot hold a star in our hand, we can hold a diamond in our hand. And this is how a diamond is created. All right. I see the diamond in each of you. And a diamond is created by carbon under heat and pressure. It is the heat of competition and the pressure of a deadline that is going to transform you from where you are right now into becoming a diamond. And once you have become a diamond, you will never go back to being anything less than a diamond. The hardest substance in the world, the most beautiful, precious substance in the world is a diamond. If you want to cut glass, if you want to cut anything, you do it with a diamond, and each of you are diamonds. Never forget that this process of heat and competition is transforming you into something. You will never go back to the way you were. You can only go forward as a diamond. And as you hold yourself and your esteem in your hand, you will never go back. I see the diamond in you. I see the diamond in each of you. And if you do the work, following what you've learned today, mind, define, refine, you are going to see tremendous results, not only in speech making, but that improvement mindset will help you everywhere else. It has been a privilege and an honor for Raj and Tuba to have invited me here. I am humbled by their kindness. I am humbled by everyone who chose to show up on a Saturday night when you could have been doing anything else to be here with me. And I hope that you have enjoyed the Diamond Hour and a half, the Diamond maybe 2 hours. I am humbled.
A warm thank you, Kory DTM, for conducting so deep, so insightful, so knowledgeful session for every one of us. We are humble that you came to our session and shared your valuable knowledge and experience which you have received and achieved in your life experience so far with us. Thank you so much, Kory, for that. For some members who are not aware about Kory, I missed his introduction in the start. Let me share for just a second. I'm sorry. But before that, let me share one certificate for appreciation for Kory from our side.
Did I inspire you? Give me a thumbs up if you did, if you were inspired.
Yes.
All right. That was my whole point. I was doing level 3 of dynamic leadership, inspire your audience. And I wanted to make sure that I had inspired you. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Would you be able to send that to my email?
Sure, definitely. Yes, sure. I will share.
It is in the chat.
Yes, definitely. Sure. Thank you so much, Kory, for having with us. But let me just give me one more second.
Oh, please take your time. Are there any other questions before I leave? You can ask them. Maybe I have answers.
Yeah, I had a question. This is Manu here.
Yes.
I tend to the authenticity of a story. There are some speeches when I hear, I get to feel that this has been spiced up. And I personally am not comfortable with that, even if I know that it's going to enhance the message or delivery. The authenticity is an integral element or important element for me. So what's your take on that?
It is important. And yet, if I am in a conversation at a pivotal time in my speech, and there's been 6 people that say these comments, I'm going to condense them into one person who makes all those comments, so that for the efficiency of the story, I don't need 6 different voices and trying to introduce 6 different characters. I've got one character who's an amalgam of all of them, so that it flows a little bit better. A second, generally speaking, I try not to be the hero of my own stories. Usually, I like to be the I end up being the sophomore, the wise fool, the one who ends up getting taught a lesson by the end of it. And wow, you'd be surprised at how smart my kids are. That, and the fact that I'm passing that through from my children to you, I generally like to be authentic as well. You'll never see me like leap out of a tall building with a big S on my chest and a cape on my back. I can't do that. But I will give you the best that I can in terms of showing how I was changed by an event. And sometimes those speeches are very difficult because, again, no one wants to come up being like a beef-witted idiot, like, I don't know anything, and then transformed at the end. But sometimes there's great vulnerability in recognizing that, hey, I didn't know something before, and now I know something better because somebody showed me a better way.
Yeah.
I hope that answered your question.
Yes, it did. Thank you, Kory.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So let me share about him. I'm sorry, I missed to introduce him in the start. Kory May, DTF, is a 14-year member of Toastmasters. Inspired by a mentor's comment that she could see a future world champion in him, Kory promptly proceeded to make mistakes. He made so many mistakes so quickly that he began to get stewed at speaking. He is an 11-time champion in District 98, having won each of the four speaking contests at least twice. He is four-time international semi-finalist, ranking in top 20 in the world in 2015 and in the top 30 in the world in 2018. This is Kory May, distinguished Toastmaster. And we wish to you, Kory, to have world champion of public speaking for you in the coming future. Thank you so much from bottom of my heart, from bottom of everyone who joined with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And I would like to say thank you to Toastmaster Tuba. Because of her tremendous effort, this session became possible. Thank you so much, Tuba, for all your effort for taking and organizing this session.
The pleasure is all mine. It was great to hear Kory. It was full of knowledge and it was nice. Thanks so much for coming over. Thanks so much for giving your time.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. If you want me to come back, just let me know.
Definitely want you coming.
Definitely. Definitely.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All right,
Thank you so much.
Take care.
Why not?
Mr. Raj, before ending, can I ask you something?
Sure, definitely.
Sir, do you have the recording of this session? I missed some part and I want to hear them.
Okay, we are
I have in the
bringing.
chat box, I have put my email. You can email me the link.
Sure, definitely. Once we will create link of this recording, we will share with you, and probably some other who have shared their email ID to get the recording. Definitely, we will share.
I just recently put the Linktree link of our club. You can follow us on YouTube and you'll get update the moment we upload this.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, it also has links to Instagram and Facebook as well, so you can follow us there. The moment we upload it everywhere, you'll get updates.
Okay.
Thank you, Ehsan.
Very much appreciate.
Hello, Panos. Would you like to share your experience a little bit?
Certainly, Raj. Still keeping notes. I've kept three things. One, the phrase that says, keep shortening your vision.